When someone asks a question about Jewish law, usually ask, what is the law? Straightforward. What's the law? And then you give an answer. This is the law, that's the law, whatever. The question I got this week was not what is the law, but the question was which sin is worse? Or basically, here's what's before the person. He's not going to do everything, so what should he do? Do this
like
or that?
Using the better evil kind of idea?
Sort of like listen, I can't.
Choices.
I think it's too much for me to keep kosher and keep Shabbos. I can do one of them. So which one should I do? That's it. That's interesting.
Both the same, right?
Well, that's an interesting question.
That's the whole point.
I mean, the fact of the
What
matter
would the rabbi say if you had to? If the person says you'd only do one. What would the rabbi tell the person to do?
Well, that's the interesting question. Okay, I could either have a ham sandwich or a cheeseburger. What should I have? Okay, so the point is that there are technicalities of which sins are worse or not. Like, for example, in terms of Shabbos is clearly a worse sin than kashrut. In fact, there's a very interesting question like that in terms of within the legal system. You're allowed. What?
Why is that? Because
the penalty for violating Shabbat is stoning.
According to the penalty, the strict.
So which is the stricter law? The penalty.
The reasoning behind it, like the meaning behind it.
The fact is that's an interesting question, but that doesn't. In terms of the technical law,
right? The
law. You see, what you're getting at. What you're getting at is something I'm going to get at, in the sense that when you deal with technical law, you deal with legal constructs, and one of those legal constructs is what is the penalty, which tells you the stringency. I mean, rarely was the penalty ever carried out, but the fact is the penalty really tells you the strictness. Okay, so this law is stricter because the penalty is stricter than that law. It's harsher than that law. So it tells you it's a stricter law. But the question that emerges, or the interesting question that emerges, well, let me give you an example of a choice within the system. A person has to eat meat on Shabbos for life-threatening reasons. Okay, so the person has to eat some meat, right? So you have a choice of what to feed him. You have a bunch of non-kosher meat, okay, and he has to, and you can give him a steak of non-kosher meat or whatever, or you can chef an animal, right? You can kill an animal and give him kosher meat. So what should you do on Shabbat if someone has to have a piece of meat? Okay, should you give him non-kosher meat, or should you chef an animal and then give him kosher meat? So the question comes into quantity versus quality. The prohibition of shechting on Shabbos, of killing the animal correctly on Shabbos, is a prohibition of Shabbos. You can't kill an animal on Shabbos. That's one of the prohibitions of Shabbos. And we just said that Shabbos is more stringent than eating non-kosher. On the other hand, once you shecht the animal, however much of meat this person eats, it's all kosher. So there's one sin that the person did in terms of shechting the animal. But if you feed this person non-kosher meat, and let's say he has to have a good amount of it, then every olive-sized portion of meat that the person eats is another sin. So let's say he has to eat a good amount of meat.
And there's double jeopardy.
Right? So therefore, if he eats a non-kosher piece of meat, he'll be doing 10 sins. But if he eats a kosher piece of meat, that was only a result of one sin, the shechting of the animal. Actually, it's not a sin because the fact is that it was necessary to do so to save the person's life, which is permitted on Shabbos. So, what law? How much law should you override in order to do that?
So you just answered it.
Well, the truth of the matter is a disagreement. Some people say you shouldn't. Some people say
give the unkosher meat.
Give the unkosher meat because the prohibition of shechting and Shabbos is more stringent, even though you're going to do more of that sin. Other people say, no, you should just do the one sin, even though it's a more stringent sin. But that's not what I'm dealing with. But by the way, that's all within the technicalities of the law. What I want to deal with is when someone says, "What should I actually sin?" and there's no justification for it. Should I have a cheeseburger or a ham sandwich? Yeah.
If when the temple gets rebuilt, and somebody breaks Shabbat, would we have to stone them, or would we be able to change those laws, or are those set in stone? Those set in stone.
I'm thinking about it for years. You don't know what to do.
I gotta start getting ready for Shabbos. I gotta start getting ready for Shabbos. So BB sent me an email saying he's building the temple. I accept your answer. I already know the answer.
No. You see,
your silence is different.
No. My silence is.
Real question.
How do you know what it will be like when the temple's rebuilt? The fact is that
there's different stages. There's different we'll still have to deal with. It said no. I don't know how. To what degree everything is held, but from what I learned, there's a beginning stage where we'll still have sins and have to do korbanos and all these things, and then it transitions.
Yeah, but you see, what I'm thinking about is
a lot of it is speculation.
You don't know. When you're talking about the temple being rebuilt, are you talking about being rebuilt within the definitions of reality that we are presently in, right? And it will just be an outgrowth of present reality? Then, or are you talking about a shift in reality? I mean, the fact is that for example, people point to the fact that when Yeshua entered into the land of Israel, he basically said to the non-Jews there, he gave them a choice, one of three things. Get out, become Noachites, or we'll kill you. We're going to wipe you out. That was a choice given to them. Now, the fact is, there are people who sort of say, and we should be doing that today with the non-Jews in Israel. Okay, what? Well, there's one big difference. The fact is that in our world today, we accept the reality of doubt. Okay? We accept people saying, I don't know if I believe. Okay, if someone says, I don't believe in God, do you sit there and say, gee, we should take them out and stone them? Yeah, there's reasons why people doubt. Right?
How does that justify?
Right. So the fact is that we say to people, gee, we understand why, you can't prove it. We understand there's issues of doubt. You understand? So therefore, it doesn't mean it justifies everything. And like in certain ways, let's say the Jewish attitude towards ISIS, for example, is you got to do what's necessary to protect people, right? Whether a person is has some crazy beliefs or whatever it is. So I don't know why he has those crazy beliefs and so forth. But the fact is no matter how crazy your beliefs are, I can't let you harm others. Okay, that's a much more practical consideration. Okay, if you want to have your crazy beliefs by yourself without harming others, listen, can I prove it and so forth? No. So the fact is that, and that's really one of the bases of freedom of religion. The fact is in freedom of religion, you basically say, listen, I can't really prove this and so forth. Therefore, we're a little bit more tolerant of situations. So when you talk in and saying, Yeshua told the people, if you don't do this, we're going to wipe you out. Well, what happened to tolerance? What happened to, well, if you read the stories as it's presented in the Bible, those people who he basically gave that ultimatum to already knew all the things that happened to the Jews. They knew that God was on the Jewish side. So, like Rachab, the woman who hides the spies in the Yeshua story, says, "Listen, we all know what God did for you. We all know that you wiped out Og and what happened to Egypt, the most powerful nation in the land. We all know you wiped them clean and you destroyed their armies through some miracle at the Red Sea. We all knew what happened. We all knew you crossed over into Israel through some miraculous splitting of the sea over there. And that's why she says to the spies, listen, make sure I'm taken care of here, right? Because I don't have any problems with you guys because I recognize who you are and I know God's on your side." So you hear her saying that everyone around knew this. And yet, like, these people are sitting there and saying, oh no, we're not going to abide by these Noahide laws. We have no doubt that God, who's already exercised all this power in the world, is telling you to do this. So you're talking about a very different situation than the situation of doubt. So the fact is that's why I'm saying in terms of the third temple, if it happens in a way that there's first a miraculous building of a third temple, or there's something that happens, then it's going to be, when you start thinking in terms of, if you actually had no doubt that God said, listen, here's the story. You're either going to keep Shabbat or I'm going to exercise consequences that are going to make you regret everything you did in violation of Shabbat. Okay? I think a person will sit there and say, gee, let me understand this. Okay, so it's like basically God saying, listen, eat that cheeseburger and I'll make sure you'll regret it for the rest of your life. And I can do that. Well, you sit there, it's like you begin to understand. That's really the real definition of real evil from a Jewish perspective. When you think in terms of Amalek, okay, what was the great evil of Amalek? Because they understood exactly what was going to happen. They understood they were going to get their butts kicked in. Because they just saw what happened in Egypt. Oh, let's go attack the Jews. Are you stupid? You weren't, right? You understand what's going to happen to us? We're going to lose. And we're going to be in big trouble. Well, there's no way we're going to win. Are you crazy? No, they still wanted to do it. That's real evil. Just to sit there and say, we don't care what happens to us.
We have this choice, but it's obviously
the choice. The choice is...
The odds are against them.
That's why Amalek people basically say, I'm going to cut off my nose to spite my face. Okay? In other words, basically, listen. I know that not listening to God is going to cause me tremendous pain, and I will basically, but boy, I'm just not going to listen to him. That's really what Amalek is about. That's real evil.
Is it similar to we have free will? Hashem gave us free will, right?
Yeah.
Is it going to be similar in the sense that we'll have free will as well, or it'll be kind of like a peaceful kind of garden of Eden?
Well, the question is,
do that kind of thing.
Well, the question is, what is free will? See, the point is that a lot of people feel that free will necessitates a lack of surety. In other words, the reason, some people like to give an argument, the reason you can't prove that this is right is because if you're able to prove that this was right, then you wouldn't have free will. On the other hand, though, if you have free will, is that really what free will is? I mean, the fact is, Amalek's free will was that they could sit there and say, even though we're going to suffer for this, even though we are going to have problems with this, even though I'm going to pay a tremendous price for this, I'm going to do this because I don't want to take orders from God. That's also a form of free will. But the truth is that when you're talking about the third temple, and you're talking like let's say the way the Rambam describes it, the fact is that everyone will recognize the existence of God and the existence of the Jewish God. We're talking about a very different perspective. So
it's almost like they will have free will, but why would they do something that wouldn't lead to peace and harmony? And
that's the question of what then is free will. That actually is a people think free will is the little devil, little angel from the cartoons, right? Free will is much more the ability to think, the ability to contemplate, consider things. Do you have free will to drink arsenic right now? Yeah, you have free will to drink arsenic.
You use it for good, you use it for bad.
Yeah, no, but the truth is if I put arsenic on this table right now and say, okay, guys, you all have free will. If you want, you can drink arsenic or not drink arsenic. Do you think it's 50-50 for anyone in this room? Gee, that's a tough question. Should I drink arsenic or should I not drink arsenic? Gee, that's a tough question because that's what free will is about. No, for most people, free will is, you're right. I could make a decision to drink arsenic, but I'm not going to. I mean, the fact is that it's an interesting question what free will is about. Let's go back to this issue. What I want to start with in terms of the halakhic question. The fact is that when you ask a halakhic question, you get an answer from the legal system. What is the law? So I told you in a situation, what is the law in this situation? I think I told you a case where what's the law in terms of what law should you violate in the face of a need to violate the law for life-threatening situations, which is and you're allowed to violate the law for life-threatening situations. But the other question is not what the law is. The other question is sort of like extra legal, or it's like the question. I want to have a Big Mac. I want should I have a big guy says, listen, I'm going to eat something not kosher. I'm not saying in any way that I'm going to justify eating it. Should I have a ham sandwich or should I have a cheeseburger? So it comes up to the rabbi and says, what's worse? So the rabbi says, this what? But the fact is, that's not a situation for legal reasoning. That's not. That situation is much more what you're getting into. The reasons for the law, and the reason for that is
that would help, I think, more making your decision. Than just say do this.
The fact is that it's a different type of decision. So the person in that situation is not asking for a legal decision. Okay, because according to the law, they're both prohibited. The person in that, what's that person asking by asking the question? What?
Moral, right?
It's not even just an issue of moral. The question you have to ask is why that person asking. Why is a person asking? Should I have a cheeseburger or should I have a ham sandwich?
Well, if they're asking a rabbi that.
Yeah, but why? Why are they asking?
Then it's like they're not kosher, so
but there's no justification. So what are they really looking for? What's
worse? What's the reason?
And therefore, but what are they really trying to find out? If it's something, if they're both evil, why are they saying, listen, which evil? I mean,
which poison you want to eat?
It's kind of, they kind of want like assurance, reassurance.
Well, but the fact is, what are they really looking at? You see,
Depends if you look at it as poison or not.
yeah, but the fact is that the question exists is why would a person ask that question? The person already feels that it's okay to eat that. Or why is the person eating it?
Yeah.
What?
Or you could mean the opposite, that it's not okay to eat that.
So why is he eating it? In other words, what's really going on in a person of that nature? What's the question? In other words, behind that question is really the question of why is the person asking? Person comes up to me is asking me many questions in Jewish law, and the fact is I'm looking at the person, and I'm trying to, is it just information the person wants, or sometimes the person is mocking by asking that question. They're mocking, or basically what really is the person's motivation for asking that question. Mm-hmm. And it was just a person saying, listen, the person's basically saying, I can't control myself. In another context, this question has come up where a person may ask whether it's better to sleep with a non-Jewish woman or a Jewish woman, right? Okay, so the point is what the person is basically saying is I know I can't control myself, so I want to get by. So the person's already struggling with the fact that he has a drive and he feels he can't control it. So really, what the person is really dealing with is that the issue is I have this drive and I know that I can't control it. So therefore, what should I do? And what the person's really saying is, what's the best way to sort of like. What the person really is looking for is what's really the best way of dealing with this drive. Like, I don't think I can control it, but the person is struggling with the fact that, hey, maybe the person is really struggling with the idea of I should really control it. So in the answer to that question, like for example, in this question over here, a person came up to me and asked me that question. Okay, I would sit there and say, okay. What you're really struggling with is the fact that you feel that you can't control your drive, and that's the real issue. That might lead into a different question. You see, the point is if a person starts asking you a question of what sin should I do, what you would say is which is worse, I'll try and do what's less worse. The person's already struggling with the inherent issue. So then the question is, so what's really the issue that you're dealing with? What's this person? What's the struggle? So I don't know why a person would ask a question between a ham sandwich and a cheeseburger. But if you're going to come up to me and ask that question, I sit there and say, well, why don't you go to a kosher restaurant instead? And you sit there and say, no, I really need something that tastes good. Okay. So now we're dealing with the original. No, I mean the.
I'm sure there's lots of Jews that have asked that in Brooklyn.
I think they weren't tested their knowledge sometimes.
No, but the
didn't happen to him.
The fact is that there are.
Well, we actually.
You see, what's going on. What's going on is that it's really a matter of a personal relationship with the law. It's not a matter of saying what does the law really say. It's the fact that what's really going on is the person is really having certain, you might want to say moral questions or ethical questions, or sort of like life questions. Like in this case, when I'm asking between a ham sandwich and a cheeseburger, So I make a joke. The guy's basically saying, I'm not going to eat kosher because it tastes awful. I've had people say to me...
A little more of a mocking.
But I've had people say to me that, kosher is really not that good. And therefore, they have a hard time keeping kosher. But what really comes out when you really talk to such people is that they're culinary connoisseurs, and they really go for top cuisine, and they really go for
take it to another level.
Yeah,
it means something more to them.
Right, and they're basically saying you see certain certain people, it's like it's the masterpiece of the dish and so forth and so forth. And they're sort of really into this whole
experience.
The whole experience. And so it's so powerful to them, and they really turn it into human experience. They'll sit there and say, "This is what it means to be human."
But that's not very common. You'll find
you find this among many people, that they basically
people love food, but
but there are people there for sure are.
Yeah.
And there are people, and I've had people say to me, "I really can't keep kosher because
just don't make
this and they're very serious about it. So really what you're talking about with them is no longer ham sandwiches and cheeseburger, is why is the quality of food, why is culinary expertise, why is that so important to you? And it goes beyond just it tastes good. It's like they'll start getting into this is what being a human being is about. Animals, they eat from troughs. Pigs eat from troughs, but a human being, it's the dish is
steak,
it's presentation, and then you eat it with a knife and fork, and it's a whole. And the fact is you're already beginning to understand that it's a very different discussion. When a person asks you a question about what sin should I do? I'm going to do a sin, so what sin should I do? What they're really opening up is their own personal relationship to their understanding of Torah, and therefore their understanding of where they think that there is a problem with Torah. And therefore, what you have to start discussing is, okay, that's the real issue. So let's start dealing with the real issue. It's no longer about the ham sandwich. It's about what's the connection. And then, if you start answering those type of questions, then you start dealing with the individual. So there may be one person that I would sit there and say, maybe it's better for you not to. I would never say to a person, it's okay for you to eat a ham sandwich. I would sit there and sort of say that maybe for you.
It depends on the circumstance.
Right, and part of that circumstance is the individual, because what I'm doing as a rabbi is I'm trying to get the individual to struggle with the issue that really is holding him back. Really, what's the issue that's really bothering you? Yeah.
Of course. So, if it's life-threatening, does that make it okay? If the person needs the ham sandwich to survive.
Oh, absolutely. If it's life-threatening and that's the only thing that's available,
so it's not a sin.
So if you need,
there's a technicality.
That's nefesh.
Right.
If you're Shabbos to go to the hospital, you can break Shabbos to go to the hospital.
Right. But
what if you could treat yourself at home?
That's different. I'm saying you have to go.
You have to go. But the thing we're talking about, we're talking about when a person is talking about knowing And it is. There's no doubt that technically. By the way, when we talk in terms of sin, it's very important to understand something. This is a very big difference between, let's say, us and evangelicals. Okay? When we talk...
Evangelical, you mean
evangelical Christians or whatever. What I'm talking about is the way most religions talk in terms of sin. It's from a Jewish perspective, we use such criteria to evaluate the nature of an act and so forth and so forth. So I can sit there and say eating a ham sandwich is a sin. It is an action that Jewish law says you shouldn't do. At the same point in time, okay, I don't with that statement in any way offer a suggestion of how God will respond to that person doing that act. I'm not God. I have no way of knowing how God will respond to a person doing an act that's prohibited. Because the fact is that all I know is that the act is prohibited. But whether this individual is held to be culpable for that act, or not, and how that person will be punished for that act, that's God's decision. That's not mine. Yeah.
Another question. So, are you still are you still implying that there's consequences?
Within the Jewish perspective, there's clearly consequences. Those are consequences of God's. You know what I mean? I mean, if there's a Jewish court and the court responds to it, then there are consequences, in the court system, specifically when it's issues of law and order. But the fact is in terms of what we would call religious consequences, in terms of sin, and if you do that, you're going to hell. We don't talk like that. Because the fact is that that's God's choice. That's God's response to the situation. Are there consequences? Yes. Okay. Generally, the yardstick for consequences is based upon the statements of Jewish law. So when you hear that something is prohibited in Jewish law, you can sit there and say, and therefore you can assume there's negative consequences for violating Jewish law or whatever. But the truth is the judge of who judges those negative consequences, God basically does so knowing the individual and how much that individual really did have choice and how much was a result of his own psychological issues and so forth. What?
Follow that there are some averas that there's some sins, if you want to call it that you can't not do. There's a situation where you will fail. There are ideas like that.
Okay.
What sins are those categories?
They're individual.
No, the fact is that the truth is that okay. What you're just saying is that every one of us has challenges.
But the growth is more important than the fall.
Yes. The point is that, but the thing is, you shouldn't use such terms. Sit there and say, therefore, it's okay if I do this.
That's not what I'm saying.
No, I understand. What you're just saying is the growth, and that's exactly what I'm getting at here. In a sense, when a person asks me a question of what they should do between two quote unquote sins, eating a ham sandwich or eating a cheeseburger, my response is, which act will have greater, even though both acts are wrong, which act is more would be more amendable to what you have to do for growth. Okay, so the point is that let me give you an example where this is something that someone told me in the words of Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky.
Who was?
Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky was a major Rosh Yeshiva in America, passed away in the 80s. He was like one of the top 10 rabbis in the world. So someone said to him, this guy has a choice between marrying a non-Jewish woman or marrying a Jewish woman who would not go to mikvah, which means that she would always be in the state of nida. Okay? So, which should you encourage him to marry? The non-Jewish woman or the Jewish woman who will not go to mikvah? Which should you encourage?
The second.
What?
The second one.
The second one. Why?
Because the point that she's still Jewish still outweighs the other one.
So there's one factor that, yeah?
There's a possibility that later on she might still go. Initially she'll say no, but there's always that chance.
There's a possibility the non-Jewish woman
But
will
the
convert.
non-Jewish woman, it's not an option. I
Okay,
mean,
so there's one fact that's missing on the table. The actual prohibition of sexual relations, the technical prohibition of sexual relations, is technically, strictly, much worse with a Jewish woman who is in the state of nida than with a non-Jewish woman. Okay, in terms of the actual technical state. Okay, so the nature of the law.
What's the reasoning behind it? Is there a reasoning behind that?
The fact is that I'm making a very simplistic statement. It's actually a much more complex issue. And when you think about the story of Pinchas and the Chumash, where he basically killed Cosby and Zimri because they were sleeping together, it's not just a simple matter. I don't want to get into the actual technical workings of it and so forth and so forth. But in the actual technical law, based upon just the actual narrow individual distinction, there's no doubt that sleeping with a Jewish woman, having relations with a Jewish woman who's in a state of nida, is clearly much technically is a much stricter prohibition than sleeping with a non-Jewish woman. So that's really behind Rav Yaakov, the question that Rav Yaakov was dealing with. Because if you ask that question, is that what?
Does everyone know?
Nida is a woman who had her period and never went to mikvah. So the fact is that she's in a certain state. So the point is that really was behind Rav Yaakov's statement. Rav Yaakov's statement is saying, listen, on a technical matter, there's no doubt that if you look at the situation and sit there and say, he's going to marry a non-Jewish woman, he's going to marry a Jewish woman who isn't going to go to mikvah, so you'd sit there and say, well, in terms of the prohibitions, it's like that. You're basically asking the question: should I eat a ham sandwich, or should I eat, or can I have a cheeseburger? Okay, so it's that kind of situation. But if I throw it now wait, okay, yeah.
A lot of all these things are applying to a person who's religious. What about for the rest of the world, for people?
The fact is, the law is
really
the law. You're right. The law is technical.
Right.
It's technical and just says here is the law. Now that's where Rav Yaakov goes beyond that. So he sits and says, listen, in terms of the technical prohibition, similar to eating a cheeseburger versus eating a ham sandwich, which technical law is more severe? Okay, so it seems to be that the prohibition with the Jewish woman who's in the state of nida is much more severe than a non-Jewish woman. But then he says, but if someone actually has that situation, which most likely is some non-religious person, and he's going out with two women, or he's going out and comes to him for advice and say, hey, there's two girls I'm going out with. Which one do you like better? Which one do you think I should pursue? There's Mary or there's, Sarah. Which one should I pursue?
You might end up marrying that person.
Right. So the fact is that Rav Yaakov said clearly, you can't have a Jew. You encourage him to go out with a Jewish woman. Right. Of course you encourage the Jewish relationship. Why? They're Jewish. Right. Because maybe one day they'll get there. The kids will still be Jewish. I mean, the fact is that obviously.
Continue the trend.
What?
Continue the
Is
trend.
it just like one more halakhic issue that with the non-Jew, the man who has relations, he's not fulfilling the mitzvah? And it's also, there's another prohibition of...
There's no doubt in terms of the technical prohibition, okay? Yes, in the narrow definition.
So
Okay, don't
reinforce the fact that you should be having relations with a Jewish girl, because
wait a second.
What will lead to?
So the fact is what he's saying is that that's the idea. We're not talking about the technical law. We're not talking what is the law, okay? Okay. The point is that the in the world of Jewish law, that's a very significant idea that most people don't recognize. In the world of Jewish law, the law is really written in order to be a guide for what you should be doing. Like the Canadian Criminal Code, the way it's written, it's written as, if you do this, here's the punishment.
Yeah.
If you do that, here's the punishment. Why? Because the law is written basically with an idea that everyone out there is going to want to break the law, so we better tell the people, this is what happens if you break the law. But within the Jewish consciousness, and you hear this in terms of when people ask questions of the rabbi or whatever, the person who, let's say, before with the Coke in China situation, person wants to follow the law. So he goes to the rabbi and says, listen, like in America you'd ask the law, okay, listen, if I speed, what's the ticket? So you sit there and say, listen, if I drink this Coke without hashgacha, what happens to me? That's not the way a person asks Jewish law. They ask Jewish law, I want to follow the law, can I have this to drink? It's a very different law. It's a very different mind consciousness. I want to follow the law. So tell me what to do. So whether the prohibition is more severe, less severe, that's all within the technical thing. But a person who wants to follow law knows, hey, listen, can't sleep with this one because she's not Jewish, can't sleep with this one because she's Jewish. That's the law. But we're talking about a person who's basically in a different mindset. This person is saying, I'm not following the law. Okay? So that person comes to the system and says, I'm not following the law. And so, like, what should I do? What should I not? And that's a very different type of question. That's not the normal halachic question rabbis get. The rabbis have to deal with it then is, let me understand not the question of what the law actually is technically about, but what would bring you closer to growth? What will bring you closer to dealing with the law, to relating to the law, to incorporating the system into your mindset? Okay? In other words, what can I work? And in that situation, there's no doubt that encouraging him to relate to a Jewish woman would be more in line with the goals of the system. Okay, so there's a very different mindset there, and that's really what you're getting at in a very different question. You're not asking, when a person asks you a question between the cheeseburger and the ham sandwich, it's no longer about the cheeseburger and the ham sandwich. It's that, why don't you go get a kosher sandwich? Why is it you have to have a cheeseburger or a ham sandwich? What's really going on here? And then what do you really need to do to encourage it? Therefore, for example, this is a strange type of situation, but it's something similar. I'm originally from Ottawa. There's a rabbi in Ottawa, Rabbi Reuven Bilka. We talked with him. He wrote an article once about, or he mentioned once about a family that was driving on what?
My mother knew him.
Yeah.
Rabbi Bilka.
Right.
She told me that.
What? Okay. So he once told me. He once said to me that there are people flying on Shabbos, right? They were flying on Shabbos. So he sort of mentioned, did you order kosher meals? And they thought, what? We're flying on Shabbos, Rabbi. What are kosher meals for? He says, what does one have to do with the other? The fact is he was right. Now, I don't know whether these people actually ended up ordering kosher meals, but there are people, I could see people doing it. I've heard of people doing things like that. That seems so strange. But the fact is that people, there's people who aren't kosher, but they won't eat pork, right? There's, they won't eat this, they won't eat that. But the point is that you're dealing with but the question is, what do you do to build upon their issue? Where are they going? Where do you want to go with? And so forth.
So is it,
yeah.
Here's a question. I've experienced people who have some sort of traditional Judaism, but consider the whole religion to be bogus. And their idea of tradition is just kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. And to call them out on that, is that wrong?
When you're saying they're traditional, it means
so
that
they'll keep like some aspects of Pesach, but they won't believe in religion.
So therefore,
so
what
when
you're
they
saying,
say, and they try to compare me to them.
What you're saying is that they're picking and choosing.
It's more than just picking and choosing. They're picking and choosing, but they're not. There's nothing to.
No, wait a sec. No. They're picking and choosing. The fact of the matter is they have a system within them that says, I'll do this, but I won't do this. And the question is why are they doing this and not doing this? So this, the fact is, but that's when you start. That's when you start relating to them.
More than that, because when you ask them why they're doing this, they're doing it not because they feel a connection to religion. All they're doing it because that's kind of what they've been doing. There's like nothing to.
So they're accustomed to.
Yeah, there's nothing.
Wait a sec. What you're doing is being too narrow in the possibilities of why people do things.
Right.
The point is that what you're really getting at, or what you're not doing, is a person who's traditional. Why is that person traditional? Right. What's his motivation? What's her motivation? Why are they interested in this? Okay, what's their understanding of Jewishness? The fact is that what you're doing is sitting there saying, they're just being lackadaisical. No, they're making decisions. Yeah. They're saying, I want to do this. And so what's their criteria for making that decision? Golda Meir once came over here and said, Shabbos is so important to the people in the diaspora. Right? It's not so necessary in Israel, which is a classic Zionist, secular Zionist concept. The idea that more than the Jews kept Shabbat, Shabbat kept the Jews. People don't recognize that it's actually very much of a secular Zionist concept when people say that. Okay, they think the fact is what they're really saying is that what's necessary is Jewish identity, and Shabbat was necessary to support Jewish identity, which is true when the people didn't have a land, because that type of behavior distinguished Jews. If you don't have very strong distinctive behavior for Jews, you're basically going to have weakness in Jewish identity. Okay? That's true, but what are you saying is the most important thing? Jewish identity. What's Jewish identity about? So then you look in terms of secular Zionism. The Jewish identity was about nationalism. Okay? The point is that if you think it in terms of a religious concept, okay, Shabbat is most significant because it's a statement about God. So the point is that of course Jews keep Shabbat because it's a statement about belief in God. Okay, so it's not just an idea that Shabbat was kept in order to keep Jewish identity. Shabbat is the defining nature of Jewish identity, which raises the question of, do you need a land to keep Jewish identity going? No, because we're able to survive without the land in the diaspora because we understood our religious identity. Okay, and
what we were saying last time,
right?
With the difference, what's Jewish mean?
National versus nation versus religion, and I'm not. But what I'm saying is that when you get into these issues, and a person is traditional, what you really want to do is find out what is the motivating aspect of that person, and that really becomes a necessary question when that person is saying, should I do this or should I do that? What I really want to understand is what are you thinking? Why are you even contemplating doing this sin or doing that sin? What are you thinking about Jewishness? And then I want to figure out, let's discuss Jewishness. Let's see where we're going now. Now, to me, I have a certain definition of Jewish. So obviously, you're going to discuss with me. I'm going to try and convince you of my perspective on Jewishness, right? So if you're going to go up to an Orthodox rabbi and say, what's better, this or that. You have to understand that you're entering into a conversation of allowing that person to try and convince you of why his Orthodox definition of Jewishness is correct. But what you're dealing with is the aspect of discussing what Jewishness is about, which is a topic which is never on the table anymore. No one asks what. I said this last week. No one asks what is a Jew anymore. Okay? Everyone has their own definition of Jewishness, but they don't even know how to discuss it. They don't know how to put it on the table. And that kind of question, when a person says, what's worse, this or that, in many ways, it's the person is putting their personality and their being on the table and their relationship with values. And then leading into Jewish values. So what you said before about morals, the question is, what are their morals? And these are questions that come up all the time. Follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's a very much, what I'm really getting at is that there is another side to Jewish discussion. There's the objective side of Jewish discussion. What is the law? What does Judaism say? There's another, which is the subjective, individual side of Jewish discussion, which is what is the person's relationship? Where's he coming from? Where's she coming from? What's that person thinking? How does that person understand Jewishness? Where's the goals of that person? And then you're talking about a very different discussion. And it might be that the answer to that person might be a little bit different.